So a couple of years ago now, we saw the release of a fresh DreamWorks film franchise. Franchises are well and truly how DreamWorks Animation have made their money for years now. They managed to find a formula that works and make at least 3 movies that do all decently well. They kind of need to as well. Whilst other studios can make original content and do well for themselves, DreamWorks often falls flat on its ass in that regard. Especially in the 2010s, where there was flop after flop after flop, so much money lost. And so when I first heard that The Bad Guys was going to be a thing, I was deeply skeptical. I thought the initial trailers and whatnot looked really good overall. I especially thought the visuals looked like a step up from DreamWorks as usual, but I wasn't sure that it was going to be financially successful or viable. I guess it was though, as it grossed about $250 million off a budget of up to $80 million. So not a huge box office splash, but it was enough for them to greenlight more projects. I assume with the hope that the sequel will do much better, which is the general trend for DreamWorks. I mean, just look at the difference in the box office for Shrek versus Shrek 2. I'm not saying the difference will be quite so high here, but I do think the sequel's going to do well. In the meantime though, we've had a number of specials of rather dubious quality. Last year there was a Christmas special which I would just say was bad. Nothing that made the film good was present there, and it dragged everything down. Then this year we had the Halloween special, which wasn't bad, but was very middle of the road. Despite that though, I've never felt like those made for TV/streaming shows or specials are really ever indicative of theatrical quality. So I guess we can wait and see on that. But yes, we've got a trailer for The Bad Guys 2, and it's done very well for itself. It came out only a couple of days ago now, and has racked up over 7 million views on YouTube. Not too shabby if you ask me. Clearly, people are hyped about this thing, and with good reason, because it is a really good trailer. It also comes complete with a little bit of a blurb that helps to paint a picture of what the movie's going to be about. It reads as follows. Everyone's favourite Fallons are back, and this time, they've got company. In this new action-packed chapter from DreamWorks Animation's acclaimed comedy smash about a crackerjack crew of animal outlaws, our now reformed bad guys are trying, very, very hard, to be good, but instead find themselves hijacked into a high-stakes, globe-trotting heist, masterminded by a new team of criminals that they never saw coming, the Bad Girls. So it's a pretty comprehensive little blurb right there, and one that paints a really interesting picture of what the movie's going to be about and how things are going to play out. But enough of that. For now, let's see what we can find in the trailer itself. The trailer starts off with a brief monologue by lead character Mr. Wolf, who tells the audience that in their glory days, there was nobody better at being bad than the bad guys. They were on top of the world, pulling off heists and other dastardly deeds that made them infamous world over. Here we have a really fun sequence where Wolf, using a wingsuit, infiltrates a high-rise building and together with his crew steals a car to take on a joyride. They blast their way out of the window and speed through the city streets, attracting the attentions of the local cops. This leads to a daring and death-defying chase, flipping over a market and unleashing a horde of chickens to take out the cops, escaping with their prize, loudly proclaiming that they'll never drive another car as long as they live, as this is the best one. This whole opening sequence serves 3 major objectives. 1, it brings us back to the world and showcases the lead characters. 2, it reminds us of the super dynamic animation and the bombastic action we've started to see creep in more and more in DreamWorks films. Very much feels like they're a graphic novel come to life, following in the footsteps of stuff like Into the Spider-Verse. Since DreamWorks is dialing back on its in-house animation, I was a little bit worried that the animation quality may go the way of the dodo, and we would lose that definitive style. But upon inspection, it looks like a chunk of the animation is actually going to be handled by Sony Pictures Imageworks, who I'm pretty sure animate the Spider-Verse franchise for Sony. Plus, this whole opening sequence looked really good to me, so I think I can firmly put those worries behind me and be confident that it's going to look really good. Anyway, so they've reintroduced us to the franchise and showed off the animation quality in action. This opening sequence of the trailer also serves a third purpose, to build up to a punchline with a snappy transition, showing the bad guys on top of the world pulling off a heist on a grand car and succeeding, only to cut away to 5 years later to see Wolf, far less happy, driving a little beater hatchback that's shooting out exhaust like no tomorrow, and is struggling to match the speed on a random suburban street. Just a glorious way to start the trailer. It gets you hyped, then it gets you laughing. Perfection, truly. We then get a little bit of brief exposition to explain how it got to this point for the bad guys. Why are they driving beater cars? Why are they looking so downtrodden? Well, at the end of the first film, they ended up going straight. They served their prison sentence, and upon their release, they tried to avoid being the bad guys anymore. No more heists, no more crimes. They became truly reformed animals. However, that seems to be the crux of things. As in real life, when you're a notorious ex-convict, it's quite difficult to get a job, hence why they seem to be doing it rough. In a rather funny scene, we see Wolf attempt to get a job at the bank, only for the manager to incredulously inform him that he'd already attempted to rob this bank at least 3 times in the past. The implication, of course, being that he has no chance of ever being given this job. I have to say though, I've always felt like in these circumstances where everybody's surely watching them like hawks waiting for them to slip up, the bank should be more confident that they're not going to try anything, and the fact that they've successfully robbed them thrice would mean that they'd be the perfect people to employ to make the bank heist-proof. Then again, I get why you wouldn't trust them, but still. As with many great heist movies and sequels, the story this time revolves around getting the old-timers out of retirement for one last great score. It's a tried and tested trope in these sorts of films, and whilst it may be a little bit cliche, I think The Bad Guys is intentionally playing into all of those old heist cliches, so I do have a lot of faith it's going to pay off. Here we get introduced to their new allies. Allies that are almost certainly going to betray them and leave them high and dry about 2/3 of the way into the movie. They're the bad girls. They're students of the game and big-time fans of the bad guys. We have the leader, Kitty Cat, who, as the name suggests, seems to be some sort of feline. We have Pigtail, a pig or a boar or a warthog. And we have Doom, a raven or a crow. For me, these guys seem like the fairly obvious villain characters. The OG film did have the twist villain with the hamster, so perhaps there's something there for that too, and the trailer's not showing us everything. But then again, doing two twist villains back to back feels a bit much. Sometimes there is a benefit to knowing your enemy from the very beginning, because it helps the story build tension. However, I do know that Marmalade is apparently making a return in this film too. He's in the cast list at the very least, so I suppose there's a chance that he'll be the overarching villain, and that the bad girls are working for him, helping him get revenge on the bad guys. This also opens the door for a bad girl's redemption arc somewhere near the end of the movie, although that in turn might be a little too similar to the story of Mr. Snake from the first one. But yes, they're my number one pick to be the villains, made obvious by the fact that they kidnap the heroes and seem to essentially threaten them into performing the heist. Although something tells me that it's not going to take very long to convince them to do the job. Realistically, they're probably broke. From this wide shot, it seems like the heist is going to be something along the lines of infiltrating the NASA equivalent and stealing this rocket. I suspect that when they finally succeed, that's when they're going to get hit with the double cross, and then the Marmalade reveal if they go in that direction with the story, before they're left for the cops. As for the meat of the story and the heist itself, the trailer for the most part leaves that in limbo. We get some ideas of what might happen and various different scenarios the bad guys will have to face, but no real knowledge of how these moments will tie themselves together to form the story. The one I'm probably the most intrigued by has to be the bad guys and girls infiltrating the Lords of Lucha pro wrestling event. We see that at some point it all goes to hell and they get chased by cops and a bunch of luchadors, which gets them to use deadly weapons like bottles of mustard and ketchup. But even before it gets to that point, this looks like one of the most random and insane story beats in the entire franchise. We see Shark and Piranha dressing up as wrestling roosters, and they're going up against a wrestling pig. Now this could be Pigtail from the Bad Girls, or it could just be a random pig wrestler. In these sorts of things, pro wrestling usually gets portrayed as a legitimate fight instead of scripted entertainment. So if this is a legit different guy running at them, well, he's in for a world of hurt, isn't he? I reckon this is going to be one of my favourite sequences of the film, and is going to encapsulate the insanity of the world of the bad guys perfectly. We then get another look at that opening chase in the past, so I'm guessing that this sequence is going to open the film, last for about 5 minutes or so, before we get that 5 years later jump cut into the main events of the movie. We return to the rocket, this time near takeoff, and it seems like I was right. They've done the obvious thing and double-crossed the bad guys. I mean, we have Foxington right there, laying down a beating on the bad girls. She's laying them out. So either this is going to be a funny misunderstanding, or the trap has previously been sprung. I mean, it would be funny if at the end it was all revealed to have been an elaborate ruse by the bad guys in Foxington to catch these people, but we'll have to see on that one. We then have a really funny sequence where Shark kidnaps and badly imitates the voice and mannerisms of a random Italian event/wedding planner after promising to play him respectfully. I have to say, I think Shark's probably my favourite character in this whole crew. I feel like he always gets the best moments and jokes. We then see the bad guys running across the rocket as it's breaking apart mid-air. Not in spacesuits or anything. I mean, Wolf is still in his pristine white suit. Feels like bad planning. And then we finish with the reveal that Snake and Doom are involved at some point in the movie. I'm thinking there's even a chance that if one of the bad girls is going to reform, it's going to be this one. But yeah, this whole thing is kind of ludicrously graphic for a kid's movie, huh? I mean, I really wasn't expecting this sort of thing. It's deranged, but in the best of ways. Damn it, this film looks like it's going to be so good. And so now we have yet another banger release for 2025. Hell yes, can't wait. It's going to be a good year. And so with all that being said, that's the end of the video, end of the trailer. And these have all been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the Bad Guys 2 trailer? Did you like it? Hate it? Are you excited for the movie? Maybe not? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.